as always, as a reminder, if you have a cell phone or something that makes noise, please turn that off or put that on silence mode. We do have all members present. This is a work session. There will be no voting matters tonight, only discussion. And we do have someone who requested approval from the board.
Yes, we did. Several months ago, speaking with students, and it was actually the Student Advisory Council, a lot of students expressed concern over the dress code and some suggestions of things they would like to see changed in the dress code. One student in particular, Paul McCray, who's a student at South Middle, approached me and said he would like to, see some changes, and I said, okay, there's a process, and you need to request to appear before the board, and then be able to come to the board with some recommendations for those changes. So Paul is here tonight, and so we're going to let him address the board concerning those issues. So Paul?
Hello, my name is Paul McCray, and I'm currently a student at South Middle School. And today, I would like to talk to you about considering modifying the policy for dress code. Most of the students have followed the dress code, and perhaps maybe it's time to allow us some freedom. Please consider modifying the policy to allow students to wear shorts, skorts, and capris. I had petitions signed by students at North, South, and FCHS. I didn't do Huntland because they are currently working on their own thing for the dress code. I got a total of 769 student signatures. I would also like to see you consider modifying the dress code. I didn't get many signatures from Huntland High School because I didn't have a lot of access to the students there. I have with me a folder for each of you containing surrounding school policies on dress code and some examples of what the modifications look like. Do you have any questions for me while looking through this folder?
Paul, just for clarification, are you, the pictures that you have in the folder, are those things that you would like to see approved for dress code?
Yes, the shorts
Right. Okay.
and the skirts and the capris.
What about the shirts not being one color?
No, I just would like to focus on the shorts.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure.
Are you saying solid shorts? Solid, not striped.
No.
So how do you feel allowing shorts would, I guess, benefit your academic success?
It keeps students a lot colder during like tests and stuff when they could be very nervous. It's a lot comfortable instead of wearing long pants.
So your proposal right now is strictly the shorts and the
Shorts, skirts, and
shorts
capris.
and capris.
Is there a specific length on the shorts?
To the middle part of the knee, I have the petitions with me. I have a blank sheet, and there should be one in your folder. And in the description, it says to the middle part of the knee.
Is there anything else you'd like to present to us other than what's in the folder?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. McCray?
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for
Nice
letting,
job.
thank you for letting me come and talk about considering modifying the dress code.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move us to our, review of the consent agenda. And that's our, March minutes and early dismissals. And early dismissals, I think, are more.
Correct, and some of those occurred last week, so I gave that approval contingent on the board's approval this week. I have a little bit behind in the schedule.
Any other concerns there to address? If not, we'll move to the director.
All right, to begin with, a couple of things. We wanted to recognize a couple of individuals in our school system. We've been trying to do this all year long and got behind over the last couple of months, but we're doing some catch up this month. The first student that we're wanting to recognize this evening, and I think she's got some family members with her, is Malia Stoval. Malia, will you come up? And the certificate, oh, hang on here. You get to get up behind the center here. The certificate reads that this is recognition by the Huntland County Board of Education for being named to the 2015 Tennessee Sports Writers Association All-State Golf Team and the District 8 AAA Player of the Year, Region 4 Class AAA Champion, TSSAA Class AAA State Tournament 3rd place. So she's that's all kinds of awards. And I've also asked her coach to join us tonight. He's going to come up and also add to some of her accomplishments, because I know this isn't everything.
Yeah, if you don't mind, can I stand here?
Sure.
I've got some papers. I'm Brett Smith. I teach PE at Calvin Elementary, and I coach golf at Franklin County High School. I'd like to thank Dr. Lonas for giving me this opportunity to recognize a great student athlete that attends Franklin County High School, Malia. Before I tell you about Malia, I want to introduce her parents, Jimmy and Crystal Stoval. They are also graduates of Franklin County High School, sitting right here in the back. Golf is a sport that doesn't get as much attention as it should, especially at the high school level. So we really appreciate the opportunity to share with you what an outstanding student athlete we have on our golf team, Franklin County High. She's a sophomore, and she's an outstanding golfer. I'm going to read over her achievements she's had her freshman and sophomore year. Like I say, she's a sophomore right now, but her freshman year she competed in the Tennessee Junior Girls Amateur Championship. She placed 6th place out of 61 competitors, and she played as a 14-year-old in the 15 and 18-year-old division. She placed 2nd in the District 8 Championship. She placed 1st in the Region 4 Championship out of 24 girls. Our region consists of the Murfreesboro schools such as Riverdale, Oakland, Siegel, and Blackman. She placed 7th in the Class AAA State Championship out of 54 girls competing, and she was named the District 8 Co-Player of the Year. Her sophomore year, she competed in the Wally Invitational and placed 2nd out of 21 competitors. She won the Tennessee PGA Junior Championship, which qualified her for the 2015 Junior PGA Championship. This was held at the Marymount Country Club in Texas. She finished 20th out of 78 girls competing from the United States and 8 other countries. Malia was the only Tennessee competitor. She placed 5th in the Tennessee Junior Amateur Championship out of 65 girls. She won the District 8 Championship, the Region 4 Championship she also won. She placed 3rd in the Class AAA State Championship. She was named the District 8 Player of the Year. She was selected to compete in the Tennessee Junior Cup for the East Tennessee team. And this is like a Ryder Cup format where they play East Tennessee versus West Tennessee. And it's sponsored by Scott Stallings, a PGA pro from Tennessee. And then, like she said, she was also named to the 2015 Tennesseans All-Mid-State Golf Team, first team. And she was named to the 2015 Tennessee Sports Writers Association All-State team. Malia's current ranking, her handicap is plus 1.7, and according to the junior golf scoreboard ranking, she is currently ranked 168th out of 2,924 girls in the United States and internationally. She is ranked 6th in Tennessee among all classes. She is ranked 27th out of 583 for the 2018 graduating class in the country. And she is the #1 ranked girl in Tennessee for the 2018 graduating class. Malia has been going through a lot of the college recruiting process for the past year and a half even at her young age. And I can remember as a freshman in the state tournament, MTSU head coach followed her for a couple of holes, and I thought she was a little nervous, and so I went up to her afterwards and said, "You're going to have to get used to this because it's going to be happening all the time." And she said she would, and she has. And so many of the tournaments Malia plays in, there's usually college coaches following her. Golf is so hard even when you're playing with friends, but with college coaches watching her every move, not only her swing, but when she reacts after hitting a bad shot, how she reacts under pressure, and how she carries herself. I've even seen coaches stand back about 20 or 25 yards behind her, video on her as she's swinging in tournaments. Now I'm going to read you the list of universities that recruited Malia by emails, letters, phone calls, text messages, just so you have an idea of the type of programs that are interested in Malia. And they are Belmont University, Clemson, Cumberland, Duke, James Madison, Liberty, MTSU, North Carolina State, Oklahoma State, Princeton, Stanford, Tulane, UCLA, University of Central Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Michigan, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Texas, and Virginia Tech University. Now, I'm going to read you the short list that she narrowed it down to. She's visited these schools and stayed in constant contact with the coaching staffs. And they are Auburn University, Mississippi State University, Ole Miss University, Texas Christian, University of Illinois, University of Louisville, University of Tennessee, and Vanderbilt University. After going through this process, communicating with all the different coaches and visiting campuses, and on her visits they would take her to football games and basketball games, Malia was offered full scholarships to different programs. And as of about 6 weeks ago, Malia decided she liked the university and coaching staff of one particular university the best. This team finished last season ranked 13th in the country, and they're currently ranked 19th in the country. And Malia, you can tell them where you verbally committed to.
University of Tennessee.
And she's going to go there and try to help them win an SEC championship and a national championship. And now, while doing all this, the most important thing of all, and the college coaches love this because I've taught them about it, she takes all honors classes in high school, and she maintains a 4.0 GPA.
Okay, I'll pick it up and get Oh, how fun.
Malia, we'll be in contact with you. We've got some scrambles coming. We'll be looking for the A player. I think we're fine.
Well, we do enjoy recognizing our students. We also have employees that are outstanding as well. It's probably the one unsung heroes that we have in our school system are our school resource officers. They do an outstanding job. And I always say as a principal, I never want to walk through the door without having an SRO with me. So this evening, we'd like to recognize Officer Matt Walker, who's our SRO at Huntland. If you'll come forward, Matt. You look different.
Yeah, I wish I didn't have to go by.
What's your handicap?
I think I scored like 200 on it.
We want to recognize Matt. He was actually named the Employee of the Year for the Franklin County Sheriff's Department, which is the highest award that they give out every year, which is just outstanding. And then he was also second place in the Love a Soldier contest. And to speak to some of the things that he does beyond just the SRO duties, I've asked Chris Guest to also speak to that as well.
Of course, I'm sure most of you are familiar with political negotiation and financial things when we decided to try to implement the SRO program in every school in the county. Glad we could do that, and beyond that, hiring the right people and putting them in the right building is paramount to having a successful program there. And these guys and ladies that do this job every day, they're cops, but they do a few different things than what you would picture when I say the word cop. And I can say cop because I am one. But what you look for, what we look for when we hired the 8 additional that we did were professionalism and dedication, because it's one thing to maybe go out at night on patrol and maybe not handle a domestic just right, or maybe not take somebody for DUI, or to take them when it's borderline, but it's a totally different situation if you mess up in school where people's children are. So you want your very best people there. And we got Matt from the Tullahoma Police Department. I don't apologize one bit for stealing him. But what you look for is not only someone to go in, especially at the high school level, and you have legal issues you have to deal with, but somebody that can affect other people's lives in a positive manner, much in the way that a teacher doing a good job would do. So that's what you're looking for. That's what this guy brings to the table every day he comes to work. He's one of those guys that you just say, hey, can you do this? And you leave him alone and it gets done. And usually when I get a call, it's, hey, I had this happen, but here's how I handled it. And that's the kind of people that we look for in law enforcement that they can make their own decisions on the run and be very successful. And most of that comes from being dedicated to your job and being serious about it, and also being dedicated to the staff and the kids, because the kids are why you're there. First and foremost, safety and security of the buildings and of our children and of our staff. I think if you take that, which he does to work every day with you, you turn out to be very successful. So we're very, very glad to have Matt as an employee at the Sheriff's Office, and Huntland School is extremely lucky to have him.
Matt's wife joined him as well, so we didn't get to recognize her, but thank you as well for being here. A couple of things before we get to the personnel report. Just wanted to remind you to mark your calendars for the May 3rd. After school, we'll be having our employee appreciation reception at the high school, Huntland High School in the cafeteria. A little different this year. We are going to be starting a meal, barbecue and sides, and we're going to have entertainment. We've asked the Baxter Brothers to help us book some entertainment. So it'll be a fun social event. We're going to limit the speaking and just enjoy being together and fellowship. So appreciate you all if you can make it for that. May the 3rd, it's a Tuesday. One other thing I want to make you aware of is we are going to do a kindergarten phase-in next year. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, it was done several years ago, and then we discontinued it, and we'd like to reinstate that. That's coming from a recommendation of the kindergarten teachers. And basically what we would like to do is schedule in the kindergartners progressively. So on the beginning of next school year, on Friday, August the 5th, they'll have a half day of class for day 1, and then the following Monday, they will have a half of class day 2. So they're going to switch them back and forth and give them a half day to kind of get acclimated, and that allows the kindergarten teacher to only have half the class at one time. They'll see them for 2 days each, and then they will all come together for the 5th day. So it's just a progressive phase-in that we're doing. There's no concern with, we're not docked any attendance as a result of that. The state does approve us doing that. But the kindergarten teachers requested that, and we felt like it was a good idea to reinstate that. So we're going to be doing that for next year, just to kind of keep you updated on some changes that are coming. Personnel report. I'll let Ms. Foster speak to any changes that we've had on the personnel report.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. just looking to see, the last person who retired, our plumber, Mr. John Davis, came in last week. He's going to work through May the 20th. He's going to celebrate his employment date with his retirement date. And I wish you well in that regard. And I turned down and posted a special maintenance position, trying to find a good maintenance person with some specialty skills. The rest of it is pretty much routine, just pretty normal for this time of year.
How many years of service did you
I would think 12 or 13. Does that sound right? Somewhere in that area.
That wrap you up?
Yes.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Lonas? Okay, that brings us to item F on business, the Western School Club Regulations. Looks like we've got two policies. I guess one's the policy, one's the,
Correct, the procedures, demonstrated procedures. And I sent those back out of version 5 this morning, based on some feedback from the weekend. So just wanted to, what's in red is what has been changed since the last version that you received. On the policy, 6.702, we did go in and define the difference between an academic and a non-academic club. So that's one of the major changes that you will see in there. A lot of this is based on verbiage that we drew from other surrounding counties' policies as well within the state.
do you have any questions or concerns over the latest changes?
I had one suggestion raised by a constituent, and that was whether, instead of simply having the principal designated as a non-academic club or academic club, and I guess actually this is more with the non-academic clubs, the categories of non-academic clubs, is that the students submitting the application be able to designate what they think it is, and then that would be approved by the principal. I'm just reflecting this constituents' concern to allow.
Are you speaking of a non-academic?
Yeah, for the non-academic clubs, because we have the service, honorary, interest, religious, political, and our sports clubs. And it would just be a block in the form for the students to say, this is what we think this is. Its primary purpose is this. Now, the principal might have a basis for overruling that.
So you don't want the principal to overrule that? don't you?
No. The principal would have, the students would be able to elect.
Oh, so you're just saying on the form, allow the students to do it?
Yeah, say we believe it's this type of club, and then the principal would approve that.
Well, you may have a club that possibly could fit into two categories.
Right, I think Beta Club, for example, would probably fit in as a service and an honorary club, for example. You're exactly right.
So, but really, we could leave the policy like it is and insert that in the.
Yeah.
Right?
And I
Because,
didn't include the application yet because it'll be dependent on these decisions you're making tonight as to what it will look like. So that's why that's not there, but it'd be easy to insert that.
But the application could.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask something down about line 41. It's C, participation in the club is required for a particular course at the school. Are we saying that if you're in, say, the history, if you take history, you have to be in the history club? Is that what that's saying?
No, sir, what we're saying there is if, like for FFA, there is a requirement with CTE that you have to have FFA club, and there's certain requirements within that program that you may have to be a member of that club.
So if you're in OA, you have to be in the FFA club?
I don't,
They get a
I
minimum.
think there's,
minimum
there's a certain
members.
requirement, I think, for positions, and Diana's here, she may be able to speak to that a little clearer, but those are required. For us to have those programs, we have to have clubs offered for those, like HOSA and FFA,
Let me ask that,
FBLA,
let
those,
me ask that a different way. Like, for instance, HOSA. Does everybody that takes a HOSA class have to be in HOSA?
no.
So
That's the way I'm reading it.
I think,
I didn't think that sounded right.
I think this, it should be an or between C and D as opposed to an and. So at the end of line 41. Because I think there would, you could have a club that relates, and we don't have, I don't think we have any foreign language clubs, but you could have something that relates to a subject and not necessarily be required, could relate to the curriculum, be an extension of the curriculum, but not necessarily be a requirement to get credit in a particular area.
But I guess too,
This
this
falls-
policy is reading towards what makes up an academic club,
Correct.
not necessarily
That we offer.
that the student has to do that. I don't think that's what it's, I don't think that's.
That's what I would do.
Right, right.
I think the key there is to be approved as an academic club, the following requirements must be met.
It's just talking about the
So
club
that's-
itself,
yeah.
not the.
Well, and I
Not
think,
membership.
what I'm saying is that I think under some court precedent that a club that satisfies any of these criteria could be deemed an academic club. I mean, I suppose you could narrow, you could, narrow it even more, but you wouldn't necessarily have to. And I think there would be some clubs that we, in the list that's been circulated the last couple of months of academic, that we've labeled as academic clubs, that might not meet this criteria because it's not required for a particular course, or, I mean, they C and D kind of go together, but I think if it's, there are some of those clubs are not required for a particular course.
Where did we get this language?
I don't remember which one. I know we looked at Shelby County in West Tennessee, and I think some of this language came from that policy. I have to go back and look, because we pulled from several.
Are we saying this, that they've got to be in this club?
It's two different things. I think
That's
this
what
makes
that's, this is saying.
up. No, but this is saying, this is the requirement to be an academic club.
They're just saying.
It's not saying that.
What constitutes an academic club?
Right, it's not saying that if you take that class, you have to be in that club.
Right.
With CTE, I think it used to be 10. But this-
Ms.
that
Spalding
was-
may have some specific examples. She's here, so she may be able to provide a little more clarity on that if you want to have her address it. Ms. Spalding may have some additional comments.
If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. I will say something about the clubs. It's not a requirement anymore to have a CTE club. You can have a club within your classroom to receive federal dollars. It used to be a requirement to have a CTE club outside and compete, but because of the expense, you can have organizations within your school to receive federal dollars. So I wanted to clarify that.
They still go to competitions.
They still go to
They've got the
competitions.
club, they just don't do it after school.
Right, well, but they can compete in their classroom now versus what it used to be of competing in others per se clubs. So I wanted to clarify that.
But it's not a requirement anymore.
It's not a requirement to, for instance, criminal justice. if you were in that club, if you chose to have a competition within your school, within your classroom, then that would meet the criteria to get federal dollars.
You don't have to go to Nashville.
Exactly.
Okay, if we didn't have a criminal justice club or a HOSA club, would we lose federal dollars?
Yes, that's a requirement to compete
Okay.
within. That's one of the QPIs, the quality performance indicators.
Is there a way that we can say that? I think the participation is what's throwing us off. I don't know how else you say that.
It's pretty clear to me, the way it's read.
Just for example, we have an art club that's listed as an academic club. And the way this is written, that art club would not be an academic club because the art club is not required for a particular course at the school. So that's what I'm saying is the and at the end of C should be an or. So it could be, because the art club would satisfy A, the subject matter of the club is taught in a regularly offered course at the school, and B, that the subject matter of the course of the club concerns the body of the course of the school as a whole. But C or D, it does not. But I think to call something, like the art, or, if there was a foreign language club or something, and say that it's not academic simply because it's not required for a particular course, then I think it's casting too narrowly. And that,
Yeah, I agree with that, but I still go back to what Mr. Hanger was saying, that participation kind of reads into that participation is required. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out how can you word that to where we don't bring a policy that says if you take that class, participation is required to be in.
oh, okay, I see what you're saying is that if it's an I'm just wondering if there are any, you could, I don't know, are there no clubs that require, no courses that require a club?
What, I didn't hear what he said.
There are no courses that require participation in a club, or some type of program outside of the regular instructional time?
As far as a requirement to earn a credit?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I think a lot of the clubs should be volunteer.
Well, if there's no requirement though, we could probably take that out.
Right, you could take it out and use or.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
So take out, so I'm clear on what are you deleting?
Take out C
Okay,
and replace the and at the end of C with an or.
okay, so take out the bullet for C.
This whole section right
Yeah.
here, and this becomes more.
Yep.
I agree with that.
These becomes C.
Take C out, then
Okay,
I think it clears it up, which is what I think is.
and the 10.
Yeah, I have another one. On the second page, right under F, the principal may revoke recognition of any student club / organization for good cause. I think good is a nebulous term that is subjective, and I'd like to see something more concrete there. I was taught in 101 English in college not to use good and bad.
Subjective.
I suppose something like,
We're actually a little more specific on the procedures page. That language that may need to be pulled from procedures.
I kind of would suggest that you put in for violating any of the aforementioned A through F, whatever,
Okay.
or wherever the rules are.
I think the procedures has.
I was gonna say, what was the procedure?
I kind of debate on whether to put it in policy or procedures, but on the second page of procedures, we talk about the annual review process. And there's some specifics in there. If the club organization is found to not meet the set criteria, notice will be given to the faculty advisor with corrective actions that must be taken. So it's a little more specific than just the principal designating that.
So we can,
I don't know if that needs to be moved from procedures into policy. We can do that.
So after-
Related.
after good cause, I guess we could just put a parentheses and define procedures, blah, blah, blah.
Or say, failure to comply with school board policy and administrative procedures. And that way, it encompasses this policy as well as some other policy that might apply more generally, and also includes administrative procedures, both specific to clubs and some other procedure that applies more generally to activities and conduct in the schools.
So, is failure to comply with board policy and administrative procedures?
Yeah. Like you leave good, it leaves it too open.
Well, I don't think they can put it out
Yeah.
and cause.
Please don't need to do that again.
Okay.
Or did you get
You
that?
want me to read what I wrote down and make sure I'm good on it? Okay. The principal may revoke recognition of any student, club / organization for failure to comply with board policies and administrative procedures. That's it. Okay.
I made a comment on this at our last meeting with respect to moving from an opt-out to an opt-in position. And I understand that may be a minority of one on this issue, but I feel like I need to make a few points for people that I'd like you to consider before we vote on this next week. First, we received some feedback from some teachers about the policies and procedures, placing unnecessary administrative burdens on teachers and school administrators. I think this one with the permission slip and how that's going to be implemented is probably the #1 example of that, even more so than minutes and agendas and sign-in sheets and some of the other things that were expressed as concern. I think the way that the policies and procedures are written, this is something that the teachers will be required to police at the club level, not at the school level. I don't even know how it could be policed effectively at the school level. And we have to remember that these are teachers who are volunteering for these positions. They're not, in most instances, paid faculty advisors. They're not a stipend. So I would hate to see teachers discouraged because of this. Second, contrary to what someone suggested, I do not believe the proposed policy would decrease the risk of liability for the school system. I think it would actually increase it. The scope of the proposed policy makes the administrative mishandling of permission slips inevitable. At the high school, we're talking about 1,500 students, roughly. Under the current policy, the default rule is participation. Under the proposed policy, it is non-participation. Under the proposed policy, barring a student from a meeting after a permission slip was provided but misplaced, it would probably result in an angry student, possibly angry parents, and administrative headaches. Such errors could even lead to lawsuits in some instances, such as where a student had permission to attend a religious club but was denied access because of a misplaced permission slip. That would be a mistake that, whether intentional or not, would violate the student's freedom of religion. Likewise, allowing a student to attend a club without a permission slip could create liability. Under the current policy, we only need to keep track of those students whose parents have indicated that they do not want their children to participate in a particular club. It's much easier to confirm that than a handful of students have been excluded by their parents for participating in a guitar club or any other club than it is to determine accurately whether or not each and every student who shows up at each and every meeting has permission to be at the meeting. And then we have to remember the problem of forged permission slips. How are teachers and administrators going to make sure that a permission slip is not forged? Do they need to call every student's parent to confirm that the parent signed the form? Finally, or third, the policy would bar the very students who we should be encouraging to join clubs. Students with parents who are not actively participating in the students' lives are the students who most need to be participating in after-school activities. Instead of barring these students from having positive activities to join after school, we should be helping them become active participants. These aren't people who are just students whose parents aren't actively involved. It could be simply parents, children who have difficulty getting a permission slip due to busy parents, chaotic households, or because the student themselves, the students, him or herself, is an unorganized teenager. In short, we should be encouraging students whose parents are not actively engaged in their children's lives to participate in clubs, not creating barriers for them. Given the problems we have in this community with drug addiction, do we really think that it is better for more kids to have more unsupervised idle time between the end of school and when their parents come home from work? Ultimately, I think there's two questions to ask here. What problem are we trying to solve? And I do not, as much as I respect a parent's rights to be involved in decisions regarding their child's education, I don't think the proposed policy is about respecting those rights. Those rights are protected adequately by current policy. If a parent doesn't want their child to participate in a particular club, they have the opportunity to make that request, and the school is obligated to respect it. And I don't think this policy creates an incentive for parents to become involved in their children's lives either. Parents who want to be active in their children's lives will be active with or without a permission slip. I just ask that you take that into consideration before next week's meeting.
What's the status of this? I know Mr. Cagle mentioned that this was going through the House now. Has you made the
I haven't had any updates.
I looked at the bills in the Tennessee legislature. I know there was a similar bill that was presented to the Tennessee legislature in 2000, I believe it was in 2007, and it did not, it failed in one of the committees, and I can't remember whether it was in the House or in the Senate. I did not see a bill that addressed this issue in this session of the General Assembly. The only thing that I saw relating to extracurricular activities had to do with if a student had an extracurricular activity that was not school-related, say a church trip or something like that, that the parent, that would be an excused absence, and it set up a framework for a parent who, I think it was had to provide request for permission a week in advance or something like that for the activity to be constituted excused absence. I don't know the stat. You know, if there is a bill in there, in the current session, I didn't see it, but I could be wrong. I could have just missed it.
A couple of things I think that probably, at least I would consider too, is number one, we have permission slips for a lot of different things right now, and it does not seem to me like that impedes on participation. If you want to play an athletic sport, you have to fill out, sign, and submit your, basically, permission to be drug tested. And the parent has to sign that, and child does. And if you do not submit that by a certain date, you cannot practice or play. So, they, students, athletes seem to be fine with getting that in. The parents know. The other thing about, one of the things about this is we just had this discussion some months ago about corporal punishment. If it was opt-in, opt-out. And I think it's a real dangerous thing for school systems to allow young people to have anonymity from their parents and use us as the face of that. I can't see that. Sometimes things happen, sometimes things go on, especially in high school, maybe the parent finds out kind of on the back end. I understand that, but we need to do what we can to try to help the parents have that not happen. And maybe that will encourage them to step up and take heed and pay attention to what's going on, if they at least have to look at the permission slip. I just don't think it's good policy to allow young people to do anonymously things with the stamp of the school system on it without their parents knowing. Why would you know when you're not?
I would agree with that, and also, are we saying now then, well, okay, it's too much trouble, so we don't have to get parents' permission to go field trip?
You know, that's signed 15 or 20 of those.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's dealt with every day in the schools. The intent of this policy is not to put a burden on the teachers. We don't want to do that, that's for sure. But I think that they're going to find, especially at the secondary level, that a lot of this can be placed responsibility-wise on the officers of their respective clubs. If you have a secretary, they're in charge of the minutes. If you have a president, they're in charge of the agenda. If you have a sign-in sheet, then somebody else is going to parliamentarian or somebody else going to be in charge of that. So I don't think that we don't intend to put more work on the teachers. I've had one complaint from a faculty member concerned about that. But I still maintain, as parents, we need to be involved in those decisions for the kids. In the case of middle school children and elementary children, if they have something after school, the parent has to pick them up so they know what they're doing and that they don't mind signing something because they're going to pick them up in the afternoon. High school kids have a little more freedom than that. And yes, some of them will finish their notes. That's going to happen. But I still think it's an important thing that parents are involved and they know what their children are participating in.
That transportation burden, that would be on the high school students also. I mean, most high school
Somewhat,
students
but not.
don't drive. And if they are getting rides with other students, parents, again, need to know where they are. The other thing in family dynamics are responsibilities at home for an older student. But does this interfere with the home responsibility? Or care for a sibling? Again, I think parents need to, the family dynamics just need to play into what high school students elect to do. Parents need to approve of that. And I agree with Ms. Walker, we are in no way trying to eliminate or deny access to clubs to any student. But at this point, for parents to be involved, for some clubs, is there not a financial obligation also that would be something a parent would want to be a part of that decision before a child decides to join?
Well, and I don't think they're right. But even for service clubs, they're required to do a certain amount of service within the community. And those hours are taken away from home, and parents have got to be involved with that and know what's going on there.
And I do think it is an opportunity for parent involvement to send that note home. I do think it's an opportunity, and as an educator, we promote and encourage parent involvement from the time a child comes home from the hospital. The governor's books for birth is an example of that. And as soon as they enter pre-K and enter kindergarten, we are asking them to be involved. We're tracking their involvement. We're using that data to write grants or to look at school improvement plans. I mean, parent involvement is key from an educational perspective. And I don't think that necessarily goes away at the high school level. I think it's important there too.
I think it really concerns me too that as long as that child is on those good grants, we're responsible for their safety and everything concerned. If that parent doesn't even know that they're there, I don't understand the liability thing, and I can assure you, my viewpoint on this has nothing to do with any of the club, but other than parents knowing where that child is. And I guess it's hard for me to believe with a parent giving permission for that child to be in one of these organizations, how that would create more liability.
I think the liability actually, so long as the student's on campus, the liability is the same, whether it's, when the school is open, regardless of whether the student has parental permission to be there or not. It doesn't change the staff's obligation to act in local parentis for the safety and welfare of the child. So I don't think it changes that, that requirement, unless unless what we're doing is saying if you don't have permission to be here for an after-school activity, we're going to escort you to the bus or to your car or to your friend's car to make sure you're not on campus and we're controlling who is on campus, then I don't think the opt-in or opt-out does not change our obligation to act in the best interest of the student's welfare and safety, regardless of whether there's parental permission when that child is on the school property.
Let me ask a question about liability. And I don't see it anywhere in here, but like in a non-academic club, take Interact for instance. If Interact goes on a trip, is the school system responsible for that? Because what we provide is.
It's a school-sponsored event, we just have a field trip.
And I thought our policy read that we don't endorse them. Did I not read that somewhere through here that we don't endorse?
I think you're right, it's at the top of page 2 there. I think my understanding is, for example, it parallels the making, a classroom or meeting space available in the school. That's a school resource.
Right.
So if you're making any school resource available to any non-academic club, whether that be a computer, a TV, a DVD player, or a school bus, the same school resources, same types of school resources need to be made available on the same terms. Now, you could probably, have the club pay for the bus ride or something like that, to reimburse it, and that way, in that sense, it's not school sponsored. They're using a school resource, but they're paying for it.
I'm just reading the language at the top of page 2. It says, non-academic clubs shall not be deemed to be school-sponsored or endorsed. So that leads me to believe, I understand if we're meeting after school, we're providing that resource in its classroom, but if they're meeting.
Generally speaking, though, I think when Interact maybe goes to wherever, Gatlinburg, I think they leave from their home bases, and many times the parents provide that transportation. I don't think they go as a school unit.
That's what I'm
Correct me
asking.
if I'm wrong.
Well, that's what I'm asking from a liability standpoint. If they're doing that,
If they go to home, they're not school sponsored.
so the school.
I don't think they're not.
I would, no, a legal opinion, but I think, I would think that if it is a non-academic club and the kid, the only thing I would potentially see where there would be liability is if the injury was the result of negligence on part of the faculty advisor. Because they're acting as an agent of the school.
Well, and that's why I say it's different, because what, for instance, if you're traveling on a sport, we're traveling every day, we're going somewhere with some sport, and we know we've got liability there.
The parents are giving them permission to do that.
Yeah,
If
but I
they're
think
giving them
it's,
that bus, that parents are giving them.
but it's school sponsored.
That's school sponsored.
I guess that's where I was going with that language is,
I
Where
can
does it-
check on that,
where does it
verify.
end?
I'm not.
I would
don't
certainly,
wanna make a legal-
I would certainly agree with you. I would certainly agree with you if, whether it's an academic club or a non-academic club, if the club was having a field trip and was going on a school bus, that if it's something, if it's an activity that's not on school grounds, I would agree with you that they should have permission.
Well, that's no different than the football team
Right.
getting permission to play Burbank to go.
Yeah.
So, national.
But where there's permission from, the administration and permission from the parents that, hey, we're gonna be riding on a school bus to Gatlinburg or Nashville or wherever it is.
So that, meeting at the school, getting on a school bus and going to Point B, wherever that may be, is one thing. Me leaving from my home and taking my child to Gatlinburg and meeting the rest of the children that are in an Interact club at Franklin County High School are two totally different things to me.
I think, to your point, I think you could still have, aside from kind of the liability insurance with respect to, the school bus, I think you could still have the event, like a non-academic club's field trip be non-school sponsored and non-school endorsed if the club was reimbursing,
I don't think so, because the reason I don't think so is because we have, the baseball team goes to Columbia, the school does not pay the bus driver, the baseball team does, but it's still school sponsored.
But this is not school money. This is the non-academic club.
Well, that's not school money for them, that's booster club money. I'm saying, why is that not the same thing?
Because I think,
If you have, let's take Leo and football. Football would use gate receipts, whatever the case may be, fundraising money, to pay their bus driver bill. Leo has fish fry, fundraising, and uses that money to pay for the bus bill. There's no difference. If you pay the driver and you get on that Franklin County bus, you're representative of the Franklin County school system. The only way out of that I see is if it's a private contractor.
Well, my whole point was, where are you liability wise?
Yeah.
We're addressing policies as it pertains to clubs.
yeah,
And we're gonna go over the administrative procedures after that is, we probably need to define somewhere along the line, what can you do and what can't you do from a liability standpoint.
And
I'm not saying, I'm not trying to discourage trips, I'm just saying, are we on the hook for all of it? It's what I'm after.
I
I think if you involve a school bus, I think you are.
I think that's a good legal question. I did not realize that was how, sports teams were paying for trips, that was all booster money.
Is your
Well, or
main,
it could be gate receipt money.
Yeah.
is your main concern that the children, the students will not get the permission from the parents? And there'll be a lot of kids that want to join organizations or clubs, and they can't get in because they can't get their parents in. Is that your concern?
That's probably of the three main concerns I listed, that's probably the primary one. And I would agree with people that in most families, the family I grew up in, the policy, the distinction between an opt-in and an opt-out would not have made any difference. I was fortunate to have parents that were actively involved in my education, and I was fortunate, and I don't know, maybe my parents were fortunate that I was someone who shared what was going on in my life at school. But for kids whose parents aren't present, kids who are either
Well, it's not living with grandparents.
Living with
And it's single parents.
single parent,
Oh.
parents who are working 2 jobs, parents who are simply, all they're doing is providing a roof over their head. And that's basically the extent of their involvement. To limit that, I'm just trying to figure out what, how this solves, I'm trying to understand, let me say that, how this solves an existing problem that the schools are facing. And if there's a problem, I'm all in favor of trying to solve that problem. But if there's not a problem, I don't want to put something else in place that might exclude people that could benefit from the clubs. And again, I'd like to see every single child have a parent who is actively involved, and probably in a perfect world where all parents were actively engaged in their children's lives, the difference between an opt-in and an opt-out policy would make absolutely no difference whatsoever.
I guess my concern is that 15-year-old child, that 14-year-old, however they are, that no one knows where that child is at 3:30 in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the afternoon bothers me.
Yeah.
Because that child safety is number one, period. And just knowing where that child is, and I know we're not in a perfect world, and believe you me, I see it every day, folks that we work with, where the children are just left out to the wind. But I think as far as gathering in the signatures and everything, that can be done in many ways. In an automatic world we're supposed to be living in, I don't see that as a major burden for a reason not doing that, I guess. I'm just trying to understand.
I think if to your point, like knowing where the child is, knowing where that 15-year-old child is, if the parent, if it's one parent or two parents,
Or grandma.
or a grandmother, and they're working, and between the parent, whoever the parent or grandparent is, the guardian is not going to be home until 6. Would you rather have that 15-year-old on school property engaged in a club activity, or would you rather have that 15-year-old, left to his or her own devices? Most kids probably wouldn't get into trouble, some might. And that's that's the distinction that I'm trying. If you have to, if they're gonna be kind of, if someone's not gonna know where they are, I'd rather have them be at school and people not know where they are than getting into trouble and people not knowing where they are.
I'll go back to, I think would you allow anonymity for young people from their parents and allow the school system to aid in doing that, that's walking kind of a fine line. And if they want to be in a club and organization, and they're interested, they'll get the permissions that apply. So I don't think that's a big barrier. Some folks might think.
And I would wonder if the parent is not home until 6 and the child is supposed to get on the school bus at 3 and ride home, but that child doesn't and stays for a meeting at 4:30, then how does the child get home? If he or she is 14 or 15 years old. Then they may be riding with teenagers that would be another level of lack of supervision or possible danger, whatever. I just think they're two real strong, there are two strong sides and arguments for what you're saying, Adam. I understand it, but I also agree that parents being involved in what's going on, or guardians being involved, is important for our students being age, whether they're 4 or 14 or older.
Well, I think it was important that we have this discussion. I appreciate everyone discussing it. And as you said, I can see the arguments on both sides of the issue. I think it's not an easy question. I think there are good arguments on both sides of the issue. And I support everything in this policy except that what we've just been discussing about the opt-in, opt-out. And I feel pretty strongly on it. But whatever the will of the board is, I'll respect it.
Anything else here? You've got the changes for the,
Do you have the changes?
anything else we need to talk about on this? Not, yeah, administrative. Next is administrative.
I made some edits to this based on your feedback, but also incorporated some of the changes that we had in the policy into the criteria as well. And those are marked in red.
I have a question, and it's not marked in there, but number 7 says, individuals not affiliated with the school leader as an employee or student may not direct, conduct, control, or regularly attend meetings or an activity. And what the question is what is regularly? You said we're on.
One of those good bad things.
It's kind of good bad, yeah. I think we need a more direct language. Whether that's once a month, whether that's once a quarter, whether that's once a year, or not at all. It needs to be something very specific.
I mean, you could have, kind of a middle ground, something like, unaffiliated individuals wanting, invited to attend more than, I don't know if it's one meeting a quarter or one meeting every X number of weeks, need to get the approval of the principal or school administration.
Well, we've already got that as far as that.
Yeah,
That's
that's true.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but that's where I was looking at too, is at some point.
I guess what I'm thinking about is, I don't want it to be too narrow, because you might have someone who's doing a two-part, three-part training mix.
Well, say you have a guest speaker.
Yeah, a guest speaker, and it's a 2 or 3 part
I
thing.
have no problem at all with that, because, let's say you're gonna have a criminal justice class, and the district attorney's gonna present something that it may take 2 meetings, depending
Right.
on the subject matter, you know that very well. But I don't think we need to just have free reign, just whoever, whatever, whenever. I think that needs to build just a little bit.
And I regularly attend this kind of what it comes from the.
It's subjective.
It comes from the Equal Access Act directly, is the regularly attend, but you're right, it is subjective. And so long as that whatever regularly is reasonable, I would support something more defined.
And what reasonable is, or regularly, I mean, that's open for discussion. But,
Yeah.
every meeting, I think, at some point, you gotta have your meetings.
Right.
I had discovered that one too, if you hadn't brought it up.
You have a thought on that, what we might at least look into?
Let me look at some of the language and come back to you with it. If you get too specific, I mean, we have number 8 that says you have to submit a list of any visitors for approval prior to. The principal who's approving that obviously will be aware if that person is showing up for every meeting, or if it has extenuating circumstances to where this presenter needs to be there 2 or 3 times, that approval will be given prior to that presentation being made. So I think beyond that, though, they would not need to necessarily be given back after that presentation is finished.
One, too, there's a difference in my mind between a guest speaker and a group of 5, 10, 15, 20 people.
Yeah. True.
Does that mean we could take number 7 out? Or,
As Mr. Tucker pointed out, that came straight from the Equal Access Act. It's actually in our policy under that. So I mean, it's in the policy, so that should already be adhered to. Maybe number 8 is the specific implementation of that policy language from number 7.
I was gonna say, you could just about make that a 7 and 8 you could
Put
combine.
together.
That's the suggestion I was going to make.
Well, if you do that, the latter part of that may take care of it. If the principal deems it's necessary, they won't be denied unless it's necessary to protect the well-being. I could read into that and say, look, if you're coming to every one of these meetings every month, then that's not in the well-being.
Or you could say the viewpoint of the proposed visitor, unless it is deemed that the visitor is directing or controlling the meetings, or, you know, something like that.
I can rework those together.
You know what we're
I
after?
know what you're after, let me play with it.
Okay. Who else has,
I had one comment on at the end under the annual review process. And it's one that was, I didn't catch what someone asked me to raise it. And that is, the last second of 2, the advisor will have 1 month to make corrections. The request was that it be not that it be more than 30 days, but that it would be 30 school days or whatever the equivalent would be, so that, for example, or the weekend. No. The concern was actually at the end of the school year, that if someone, if the advisor retired at the end of the school year, it doesn't mean that the club, you know, lost recognition on June 30th. So something like that.
So your recommendation is to change the 1 month to 30 school days?
30 school days, or, whatever, 25 school days is 5 weeks, whatever, something that you think is reasonable is.
School days instead of just, it's kind of like regularly meeting.
Right, yeah.
The annual review process includes a review of agenda, meetings, minutes, student sign-in sheets, and any other relevant documentation. I think what, or at least in my mind, what's really relevant there, are these clubs conducting meetings, having functions, attempting to achieve goals that move forward toward what their stated mission is or what their constitution says. They all have a purpose. Whatever the club is, all of them have a purpose, but it's kind of like policy reflecting procedure, and procedure reflecting policy. If we say this is what our purpose and our mission is, then throughout the year, our activities, our meetings, our services, whatever they are, we can reflect back and say that that is moving our organization toward achieving our mission statement. I think that's probably, to me, is the most critical part of the review process.
So are you recommending any changes to that, or
I'd
are
like
you
to have
just?
that added, that
Oh,
something,
okay.
and I'm paraphrasing.
Well, the review process could be based on number 4. Obviously, when it's reviewed, they're going to look at the aims, objectives, and constitution. So that's what you're saying, to go back to that initial paperwork that they submitted with the application to ensure that,
That what's actually taking place
okay.
is reflective of what they said their purpose was to begin with. And if you can get that out of what's already in there, that's okay. I'm just saying, I think to me that's probably the most critical part. That prevents you, for one thing, it prevents you from having a stagnant organization.
go back to Adam's line, when he was talking about the 1 month, I'm assuming we need to change that in line 2 and 3, because it refers to the both. The advisor will have 1 month. to make
Oh,
corrections.
yes, thank you for pointing that out.
That'll be in line 2 and line 3.
Okay.
And one thing that might be helpful, and I've seen other schools that do this, is with respect to minutes, is that there's a form that is offered as a model form of minutes, and I just printed off 2 of them late this afternoon, that, so not to overly complicate it, and, there's a, make it easy for them to do, and then all the clubs are doing the same thing.
I'm okay with that. It's uniform. I mean, the club's got the same form, everyone you're looking at, when you're reviewing.
Yeah. And there are lots of different models out there.
I'm assuming they're gonna want to
I'd like to back up to number 2, the first page. I thought that at our last meeting, we suggested at least 10 students to start a club, and if under 6, that we would disband. And where did the 5 come from?
I had written down 5 as the recommendation because we looked at the smallest club membership, and that was, I think, 6. And we said a minimum of 5 to establish the club.
I just thought that was a pretty small number for a big school as we have.
It is six where we're at right now.
That was our smallest club, correct. That's why they, or you all had said 5 in the last meeting.
If it's the pleasure of the group to have it that way, that's fine with me, but I just noticed that it changed.
Back to Adam's comment, as far as the uniform.
Right. Once we solidify this, we'll need to standardize all of those, the parent permission form and everything. We'll put all of that together.
Right, well, what I was saying though, that to me, that's,
Right, the school, or
you
we'll
don't
do
get
the
school board approval, I don't
Okay.
think. for-
No, it was just a
Right.
suggestion.
Now,
It
some
makes
of
it
will work
easier,
to make
right.
sure we have all of that in place
Yeah.
before school starts back.
Anything else here?
Remind me before we go on, is it in the policy or administrative procedure where faculty advisors must be present in official capacity, may not direct or advise the club beyond the policies set and the administrative policy set?
The line forward talks about non-academic.
And then line, oh, that's the other
29 to 32. That's what talks about that.
32?
Is that on the policy?
That's in the policy. But I think the specific language that you're talking about, Mr. Guest, is actually in the Equal Access Act policy, the 4.803. I don't remember the or something.
Anything else on administrative? If not, we'll go to item G, new business. Tennessee Diploma Project or academic elective focus.
This is, the board does need to approve this next week at the board meeting. We currently have, you can see in the attachment there, 3 credit elective focus areas that are in place, but we're adding 2. And this is based around the fact that the response to intervention or RTI process is going to be put into place at the high school level this year. So that would give them an opportunity to have their academic focus or elective focus around our Tier 3 interventions for English and for math. And Ms. Spalding is here as well, if she can answer any questions you might have specifically about that. But it does require board approval to do that.
That means you could take the same intervention, in other words, tier 2, 3 different times and get
Yes.
3
And
different
if
credits.
you will show them the other explanation from the state, it should be on there as well. I think it's just scroll down. It will explain all this more in detail. It's a level 3.
I mean, I understand the tier.
Right.
My question was, I can take level or tier 2 as a sophomore and get a credit. I can take tier 2 as a junior and get a credit.
Yes, if the data shows, and what they're suggesting, basically, if you're in Tier 3 and you meet that criteria, you should be able to go in and out, because obviously if you need that additional help, the course in itself changes because it's individualized. But y'all have approved actually PE as a elective focus, and then you've also did the social studies And we already have all of the others that are in place. If you want to take 3 credits above your math criteria, you can do that, your science and whatnot. This would be a select few
Let's do a
students.
cluster.
Any reason not to put this on the
Is it?
agenda?
Consent agenda is fine.
Okay, CPE textbook production.
The list that you have are all of the textbooks that have been approved by the state, so this is just kind of a formality for us to have the board approve those at the local level, so that when the selection is made, then we can move forward with purchasing those textbooks.
Yep.
Okay, policy number 3, 6.310, dress code, Malia Stoval High School. Okay, go ahead.
But this month and next month, we're supposed to be reviewing section 6, the student policies, and I picked out a few of those that I wanted to discuss with you as a board and get your input on. Obviously, we had the presentation by Paul McCray, so we have some input from the students, but I think there is a real concern, and I know you as board members hear that. Every time I go to schools, the first thing the students want to talk to me about is the dress code. So it is definitely a topic that I think is worthy of us discussing over this month, maybe into next month. What I'd like to do is review some other policies and kind of bring back a proposal of some of the language. I may have some available by next Monday for the actual board meeting for you all to take a look at as well. But then finalize it maybe in May to plan to implement for next year, next school year.
I promised I'd throw a water bottle at the next person that brought a dress code 2 years ago, but I don't see, I'm not a big fan of shorts in school, but I don't see the problem with button-up shirts, polo shirts. If they're striped, solid, polka dot, what difference does it make?
I don't know, then
I think that's something that definitely needs to change.
the stripe or check it or.
I mean, I've been, say Mr. Carroll is dressed as nice as I am, and I've been in dress code and he was not.
I've never been in dress code. I don't think I own a solid shirt. I do have one.
Because I'd be interested in the did you say 769 signatures? Were they middle school or high school or both?
They were both.
Both signatures. And they were only talking about the left of the shorts.
Now, that's brought up checkered shirts or striped shirts. They did or did not?
And I think part of that, Paul took my guidance very specifically, because I said, come back with some very specific recommendations.
He did a good job.
He did a great job with that, by providing you that input and saying this is the priority and the student concerns, and that's obviously one of them. But I think there are other areas that obviously you all are hearing about as well that we need to take a look at.
Well, I think it's like any policy we do. You try to do the best you can with it at the time. And if it doesn't work, you go back and revisit them, you rework them. The intent when we went to dress code was where we didn't wear pants around our ankles and our shirts weren't completely open and at our
And you
waist.
could
And
not see leg through 3/4 of the blue jeans.
so I think there's certainly a lot of latitude that we can put back in.
I also have a principals meeting on Thursday, and my intent was to talk with them as well. I think it's important for the principals to provide some input on that. So that's why I'd like to bring back some of their recommendations to you, as well as what the students obviously have had concerns about too.
And that may be a case where you get one thing up through middle school and another thing at high school.
Maybe too.
And the students have done a good job. I think. Yeah, I'm complying with the.
So will you bring us back their recommendations
I
as far
will,
as?
yes, with some language, and we'll get that printed up like Ms. Foster normally does in red, so you'll see the changes and all that.
I would say if we do intend to make changes to the dress code policy, though, we would want to have that done no later than June. So people buying
School
school clothes
Right.
May would be May.
Yeah, May's fine.
May would be May is better.
Okay.
Right, the elementary policy as well, we'll take a look at it with the principals. I also added a few other, and these are just kind of things that we're going to be looking at. I have concerns over our attendance policy. I think it needs to be a little bit stronger. The feedback that I'm getting from some of the teachers is a real concern of the number of unexcused absences that students are allowed to have, and there's nothing detrimental to their grade or their credits or anything like that. So I'd like to take a look at that and bring some language back on the attendance policy that would be a little bit stronger and encourage students and really, and parents, give them the understanding of how important it is for students to be at school. So we're going to take a look at
And I
that.
haven't read this whole thing, so I may be ahead of myself, but here's the problem I have. If I'm on the way to school at 7:15 and I have a flat tire, and I stop and change the tire, and I get to, let's say, Franklin County High School at, I don't know, 9, I'm a bad mechanic, so 9:25. And I wait and just come in, and I'm on time to second period. I'm not tardy to first period. I was absent first period. Now, that does not sound like it would cause much of a problem, but I can assure you, what it encourages a student to do is just take the whole day off. Because they know if they get, what is it, anything over 3, it's Saturday school, tardies, or maybe 5. But if I'm on the bubble with my tardy, I just keep on driving and go back home.
But there's also no penalty for not being in class. You know,
Not that you go to Saturday school for tardies.
Right, I understand the tardies, but, you know, if a student misses a certain amount of instruction and still passes that course, I think it's detrimental to the student. They're obviously not getting the information that they need.
I think it's reflective.
So I think there needs to be a limit. Well, but if they're not in class, the teacher has no control over what they
Right.
learn or don't
Agreed.
learn.
Agreed.
So it's important for the student to be present. So I know my own example, my son, when he went to high school, he was on block scheduling. If they missed 8 classes in any one class, if they missed 8 days or 8 times, they didn't get credit for that course. Now, it didn't matter if it was excused, unexcused, if they were tardy that day. If they were not in class 8 times, then they didn't get credit. I'm not saying that's the next direction we need to go, but there needs to be some accountability for students not being in class.
Was there any way for them to make it up? Or they just didn't get it?
They didn't get it. If they weren't there, they didn't get it. It was their responsibility to be present. Now, if there was a hardship case, if there was a medical issue or something like that, they could appeal. There was an appeal process. But if it was just simply not coming to school beyond those 8 days, they had to repeat that course to get credit.
This county had that policy at one point in time, it's been a few years ago. Just a few. But I'm thinking in the back of my mind that some way or another, it didn't correlate with state law. So I don't know why, I'm thinking that's why it was
I think it
changed.
had to do with the having to make it up because what you ran into, what they did around tardies around absences. 3 tardies was 1 absence.
I think it has to do with graduation rate.
Well, yeah, well, and one of our former directors didn't want it, but 3 tardies was 1 absence. Then anything over 3 absences, you had to make up an hour and a half or an hour and a half.
Right,
But if you want to push that out to 5 or 8 or whatever, that's okay. But I think if you do that, you put a limit on it, then you attach tardies, a certain amount of tardies as 1 absent. That may be encouragement to the same thing.
And like I said, I don't know what that language is going to look like yet, but I would like to address that in this month and next to get ready for next school year, because it is a problem for our teachers.
When you're addressing that, you're talking about problems with teachers. This attendance policy will cover everything on it.
Correct, but you can actually
Middle.
right, you could, but you could actually set aside a section for 9 through 12, middle and elementary, however you wanted to do that. Because obviously in block scheduling, if they're in class for 90 minutes and they miss 8 times, or more, that's a lot of instructional time.
Well, I'm assuming though, that's kind of where you're going with this. It's more
Yes, it would,
prevalent
right.
in.
It's more in secondary, obviously, because of the block scheduling.
And if you don't want to, if you don't consider them making it up if you miss it, that's fine by me. Just don't get the credit, you have to take it down.
But again, I'd like to go back to the principals with it, because I know they're struggling with it as well. And they may have some ideas of how we could better approach this.
Are we following state law pretty closely with the 5 days and the?
That's pretty much standard, I think, and this is TSDA language, so.
But I mean, are we actively doing that in this county?
Mhm.
We're sending.
We are, yes.
Letters go out.
Belinda
The letters go
McDonald
out.
tracks our attendance
Do-
now.
Do they make a difference? Are we seeing parents support that
Yes.
law?
And it's
I
very-
can tell you what the juvenile judge will do. If you have a parent that refuses to have a child go to school, you put them in jail.
And how often are you seeing that?
But not as much after 3 or 4 months of jail. Got to be smart. It's kind of an attention killer. So he's real adamant about that.
Child that has the flu is out all week. I saw one that actually ran the temperature every day. So what do you do in the case like that?
There is an appeal process.
That's
Right.
right.
If there's a medical situation like that and documentation, there is an appeal process.
We're talking about unexcused
Right,
absences.
just, and truancy, but.
But you're gonna bring back recommendations.
Correct.
Don't need to-
Yes.
Okay.
Just wanted to make you aware of where we're thinking on that.
Okay,
And then the next 2 policies are on drug testing, and the reason that I want to draw attention to this, we have a fairly robust policy for drug testing for our student athletes. After the first offense, the student has to complete a drug program with the parents. There has to be a second testing before they'll be allowed, and obviously there's suspension from the team and that sort of thing that also has to be accomplished before they can return. For the alternative school, if we have a positive drug test on the first offense, it's 5 days out, and they come and have a meeting with me, with the parents. On the second offense, it's out for a calendar year. My concern there is we're basically not being proactive with these students. It's almost like we're just sort of washing our hands of those students in some ways, and I feel like there needs to be some verbiage in the alternative school drug testing policy that's very similar to what we're doing with our athletes. In other words, requiring them, we're not fixing the problem, I guess is what I'm saying. I've had to actually expel 3 this year from alternative school for the remainder of the calendar year. I don't like doing that because these kids need to be in school. They have a problem, yes, I agree with that, but if we only make it punitive and we have nothing in place in our policy that helps these kids, we're doing them a disservice. So I'd like to bring some language back in that policy for the alternative school that's similar to what we're doing with our student athletes.
Is there any way with an alternative school that you can require some kind of drug program for them to attend school? That might not even be legal, I don't know.
I'd have to check on that.
That would,
Yeah.
because, you know, if I suspended from school for drugs, then I'm suspended from alternative school for drugs, I need to be in rehab, is what I need to be.
Right.
And that gets, because to me, that gets into kind of a safety issue for the team, too. So if you kind of attach one of those legally, I think that would be what.
It could be the same thing like that Eric does with the county. The
I think there's some
MRT or something
options.
like that. There's all kinds of options out there. There's all kind of money out there too for juveniles.
Yeah. I just had concerns because I didn't know if the board was aware that it is simply just a punitive policy, and I don't think that would be your intent with these students, that we really want to focus on trying to help them and get them back on track and get them back into the classroom.
As far as the athletes, the company doing that testing, how do they decide who they're going to test?
It's randomly generated. We submit a list of the students that are players on specific teams, and then it's randomly generated from that list.
they need to play the lottery.
Yeah, they do, because I know one guy.
Because they're just beyond.
We discussed that in our office. And I don't know if it's because when we turn the list in, we're turning them in alphabetical order every time. So you pick the third student down, and every time it's gonna be that student because of the alphabetical order.
That may be it.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to make some assumptions here that probably are not correct, but I agree that we do need to look into that and find out what the random is actually.
Yeah, and I'm not being combative, I'm just saying, I know one young man that's been tested for every sport, every year. Now, if that's going on, somebody, maybe some other person that needs it is not getting it, that's my point.
Yeah, I had the same concern from the constituent,
So
that
we'll check
their
into that as
suggestion was, and their insinuation was, that the people that they know will be clean, the kids, are the ones that get tested each time. That's not me, that's a concern from the constituent.
Well, we do have a awfully low number of positives.
Well, just one, like you just said, we know the cause
We had
that.
that.
I don't know how many we've had this year. I do know that we submit the list for every season, and we ask them to randomly select. There is no selection done in our office, I guarantee you, or by the school system.
Well, that may be something like Dr. Lonas said, if they take every third.
I don't know what they deem to be randomly
Maybe.
We were just kind of guessing. That's still one
Well,
money.
let me ask you this, do the folks that's providing this testing service for us, do they keep records?
They
From
do,
year
we
to
have
year,
those.
who has been tested? Maybe there's a way that we can compile those records and come up with a system that says, once you've been tested a certain number of times in a year, you get kicked out of the database for that year,
Okay.
which will eliminate what, if
If
you're,
you're playing multiple sports,
Well,
is
if
what
you
you
see
see.
the same names are on there year after year.
but something, it's still, and I'm not accusing anybody, I just know they're beating the odds greatly.
But I can see a problem there too, a potential problem. You might encourage your kids, they get it taken off the
Oh,
list.
absolutely, I agree with that.
Or you can take people not telling them.
I know that's big confidential, but you know, things get out.
We'll do some checking on that, but those were the policies out of section 6 that I specifically have dealt with this year that I think we need to take a look at and try to improve those.
I'm currently looking at the alternative school, because when you're saying you don't, in other words, you're through, you're saying you don't matter anymore. And it is in message.
With the exception of, I guess 3 through 6 though, will we take these off of Mondays, because there's nothing to vote on?
No, there's not. What I'd like to do is get some information to you all with the, do you want to move them to old business just from the standpoint that I can
Yeah, that's
submit
fine.
to you all those documents? Okay.
And then move towards looking at them and voting on them in
May.
May.
Yeah, because we're not gonna take any action.
Right. No, it'll just be more for information for you all to give me feedback on changes that we propose.
All right, I guess if there's anything else that you got, that kind of wraps up, unless anybody has any new news. We've got the, first next Monday, that meeting is at South. That will be in the cafeteria.
6:30.
6:30. Then May and, I would say for the next few months, we're probably gonna have to have work sessions because of budgets.
Right. I think by May we'll have some more information for you. We did get good news today. The estimates coming in for our federal funds are actually a little bit more than what we got last year. So that was a positive, and I'll get definites to you. But that was just estimations, but that's our state level, we didn't get good news on our estimations, but for federal, we are getting good, so that was positive.
All right, anybody have anything else? If not,